Good evening. I am Lord Hellhound, and I want to welcome you back to my Midnight Spook Show here on the Horror Metal channel. Today, let's go and talk about my top 10 horror sequels. Yeah, my favorite horror sequels. Chances are I might have left out a few. I didn't spend a whole lot of time making the list. So yeah, there might have been a few I forgot, and chances are some of your favorites might not be on this list. So if you disagree with my list, feel free to make your own countdown, your own video, or let me know in the comments below or whatever. But anyway, yeah, this is just my opinion. These are the 10 horror sequels that I find to be the best, the ones that I watch the most, the ones I find the most enjoyable. So let's go and get started, alright? And these aren't really in any order, except for maybe the top few, maybe the top, the number one, and like maybe some of the ones after that. But other than that, they're not really in any strict order, just kind of, I kind of, listed them as I thought of them. But anyway, let's go and get started. Number 10. Child's Play 2. Yes, gotta love Chucky, and I think this is probably the best sequel. It's a close one between this and Bride of Chucky for me. I love them both a lot. Curse of Chucky was great too. But I think overall, like Child's Play 2 the best. I love the climax. I love the ending in the doll factory. I love the way they kill Chucky at the end. Alex Vincent returns as Andy Barclay and does a great job once again. Yeah. I guess one flaw is that all the adults are really unlikable, but I kind of like that. I kind of, makes it that much more rewarding when Chucky offs them, and, makes it more satisfying when they get their comeuppance by the killer doll, voiced again by Brad Dourif, who of course does an awesome job. He is Chucky. So yeah, it's probably my favorite Chucky movie, other than the original. Again, it was hard between this one and Bride, but I'd say this one probably deserves it. Oh, another thing I should mention is that I'm only going to include one entry from each series just to make things more interesting, just to mix it up a little bit, so we don't have like a whole lot of Friday the 13th or Halloween sequels taking up the whole list, So yeah, there's one entry per franchise, just to make it more diverse, more variety. So yeah, Child's Play 2 is the number 10. Number 9, Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. And yeah, I'm seeing a lot of hate for this movie recently. A lot of my friends don't like this one. I think it's kind of underrated, actually. But I think it's, I see it being just as revered as is maligned. It's kind of divisive. People either love it or hate it. It's kind of like Halloween 3. It's either, either love it or hate it, like I said. I know a lot of people, a lot of my fellow horror hangouts members hate this one, but you know what, I don't care. Yeah, it does have its flaws. I can definitely understand not liking it. It's very different from the original, but I'm kind of glad that Tobe Hooper didn't just try to mimic the original and just redo the original again. This kind of feels like a spoof of the first movie. I guess I'm going to seem like a hypocrite because I don't like movies like Freddy's Dead that kind of do the same thing. But I feel like this one's a lot more enjoyable. And there's a lot of horror in it, too. It's the goriest, probably, of the whole series. There's the best gore anyway, maybe not the most gore, but I think the best gore. Dennis Hopper's awesome. I think he's a great protagonist. He really hams it up nicely. Jim Saito returns as Drayton. Leatherface, but Bill Johnson does good. Bill Moseley, who's always fun to watch, is Shop Top. I love the family members in the first two movies. So the reason I like most of the other sequels, they don't have the original family. I want to see Drayton and either the Hitchhiker or Shop Top. I think they were just as important as Leatherface, almost, anyway. Maybe not as iconic. And, of course, the Grandpa. Yeah, I think this is a very fun movie. I really love it. I love the scenes in the radio station. I love the scenes in the underground tunnel. It has a great scenery and atmosphere. It's kind of funny, too. I love horror comedies. Yeah, it's definitely flawed. It's got its downsides. I can understand why people don't like it, but I think it's a blast. I always thought it was a hoot. So, yeah, so I had to include it in my top 10. All right, number 8. The Exorcist 3. I love this movie. I think it's kind of overlooked. It doesn't get a whole lot of attention. Now, it gets a lot of praise. People like it, but I feel like I don't see it talked about too often. I guess it's kind of, in the shadow of the original. But this movie's a lot different. It doesn't really feel like a sequel to the original The Exorcist per se. Well, more so than the second film did anyway. But it tells its own story. And it's a very good story. I love George C. Scott. He's one of my favorite actors. And Brad Dourif is in this too, in a kind of a smaller role. And he's really cool. I love their scenes together. They have great chemistry. They're back and forth. It's awesome. The story is really complicated and really hard to explain, so I won't go into too much detail. I haven't reviewed this movie yet either, so I'm going to save all my thoughts, my full thoughts on that for my review. But I just highly recommend you check it out. If you love the original, you'll love this one. Just skip the second film. But yeah, Exorcist 3. Great movie. Alright, number 7. This one probably should be higher, but whatever. Let's just go ahead. George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead, the second film in the Dead trilogy, which later became a, well, what, 6 movies, 5 movies, 6 movies. Yeah, this is the second film in the Dead series, George A. Romero, and probably the best. It's close between this one and Night of the Living Dead, and even Day of the Dead, which I think had the best zombies and best gore and maybe the best makeup effects. But I think this is the most well done. It has the most interesting characters. You know, some pretty suspenseful scenes as well. Night of the Living Dead is probably the creepiest. This one might have been the scariest in a lot of ways. But yeah, I think this is probably my favorite, and definitely a great sequel. This should belong. This should be on everybody's favorite sequels list. You know, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Maybe I'm not gonna expect to see that one on many people's top 10 horror sequels list, but this one definitely should be because it's awesome. It's got Tom Savini as an evil biker. You know, how can you go wrong? And of course, Ken Foray is always great. So yeah, can't go wrong. Yeah, Dawn of the Dead. We all know that's a good movie. I don't need to go into too much detail. All right, number 6, I believe. Hellbound, Hellraiser II. Now, a lot of people like this better than the original. I don't like it quite as much as the original, and I certainly don't think it's better, but it comes very, very close. It's a little more epic and a little more adventurous than the original. There's a little more to it. It's a little more complex. Yeah, I really love this one. It's a great sequel. I reviewed this movie before, so for my full thoughts, just check out my review. But yeah, this is definitely the best sequel out of the whole Hellraiser series. Because after this one, they just kind of got worse and worse. 3 and 4 are enjoyable in some ways, and they have their moments. But after that, they're pretty much garbage. But yeah, I really love Hellbound Hellraiser 2. You know, Ashley Lawrence is great. She returns as Kirsty Cotton. My only gripe is that I think it's cool that Claire Higgins became kind of the main villain, well, up until Dr. Channer becomes a Cenobite anyway. But I kind of wish Frank had more of a role, you know, Sean Chapman's character. I wish he had more screen time. He was only in like one brief scene. It really sucks that Andrew Robinson didn't return either. You know, he could have reprised his role as Larry, maybe as a ghost or something. But otherwise, it's pretty good. Doug Bradley's great again. Once again, as Pinhead. And this is really the only sequel that has all the Cenobites, you know, the Butterball and the Chatterer and the female Cenobite. You know, I guess they were in some of the other sequels briefly, but not done as well. So this is kind of the last time we ever saw all 4 of them, you know, all of their glory. So this is the only true sequel. This is the only one I really consider canonical in the series. Great movie. Check it out. Number 5. Bride of Frankenstein. Now, I like this movie even more than the original. It is very close. The 1931 first movie is really great, so it does come very close, but I think this one's just a tiny bit better. I love Ernest Stetzinger's character, Dr. Pretorius. He's an awesome villain, and I love his scenes with Colin Clive, who returns from the first film as Dr. Henry Frankenstein, renamed from Victor from the book. Colin Clive was great. It really sucks he died so soon, because he probably would have been in other sequels. He's only in the first 2. He was a great Dr. Frankenstein. And of course, Boris Karloff returns. He's a great Frankenstein's monster. Elsa Lanchester, the Bride of Frankenstein. She's great. A very memorable, very enjoyable movie. This is one of the most entertaining of all the black and white original Universal movies. I grew up watching the Frankenstein movies, and this was always my favorite. I absolutely love it. I cannot recommend it enough. It's just great. And again, it does better than the original. Yeah, Colin Clive and Ernest Stetzinger and Boris Karloff, Elsa Lanchester. Great cast, great story, great movie. Yeah. I love sequels that pick up right where the original left off, too, and this one does that. It does very well. Yeah, the monster demands a mate. Yeah, so cool. I love the opening with Mary Shelley narrating the story, who is also played by Elsa Lanchester, who also plays the bride. Yeah, great movie. Love me some Bride of Frankenstein. Alright, so number 4, Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. Definitely my favorite sequel in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. I know, most people would say New Nightmare. Not me, sorry. This is my favorite Freddy sequel. I love this movie. I love the cast. Heather Langenkamp returns as Nancy. We got Patricia Arquette. Robert Englund, of course, is Freddy doing his thing. We see a lot more of him in this one than we did in the first 2 movies. He's great. He's a little more comedic and jokey here, but it wasn't to the extreme as it was the later movies. He's still cruel and sinister and very mean-spirited, so he's kind of, when he does his one-liners and his wisecracks, it's more like he's taunting his victims before he kills them instead of just being a straight-up comedian, you know, so it wasn't to that extreme. It was still pretty dark. It's not as scary as the first movie, of course. But I feel like it makes more sense. It's a little more coherent. There's a lot of things about the first movie I didn't really understand, like the ending and some other things. This movie kind of makes it a little more easy to follow. John Saxon returns too as Nancy's dad, so that's always good. Yeah, I love how the characters have their own abilities and powers in the dream world. That was a fantastic idea. They use them against Freddy. I think those was. I love the stop animation charred Freddy skeleton that fights John Saxon and Craig Wasson's character. I thought that was awesome. I love the setting of the mental asylum that all the kids are in. Yeah, it's just great. Some great dream sequences. The Freddy turning into a snake. The creepy old house. The little girl turning into a skeleton. Awesome dream sequences. Awesome movie. Easily my favorite Freddy sequel. Alright, number 3. Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter. And this is actually my favorite movie in the series. Not only is it my favorite sequel, but it's my favorite Jason movie. Love it. I've talked about this movie plenty, so I won't go into too much detail. Basically, Ted White plays a great Jason. Corey Feldman, who plays Tommy, my favorite protagonist in the series, Tommy Jarvis. Even though I kind of prefer the Tom Matthews version. I know I'm probably more in minority there, but I really love Corey Feldman in the 80s. He was in a lot of my favorite movies, Goonies, Gremlins, Lost Boys. Yeah, he was great back then. Yeah, some great kills. Also, Crispin Glover, he's one of my favorite Friday the 13th characters, and his friend, Teddy, they're hilarious. Yeah, great movie. Great kills, great scenery, great Jason, probably my favorite Jason, Ted White. This movie's awesome. I don't really have anything bad to say about it. I think it's a great sequel. My favorite Jason movie. And number 2, Halloween 2. I friggin' love this movie. This is the only sequel, in my opinion, that even comes close to the original. Yeah, I freaking love it. Michael Myers returns, and now it's not as scary or suspenseful as the first movie, or as classy or sophisticated, but this one just has this cruel, nasty, mean-spirited tone that I just love. Michael Myers, like in the first movie, he killed his victims, but this one, I feel like he doesn't just kill them, he makes them suffer. He torments them. Like, he just seems pissed off and really cruel and just, I don't know, really badass. I love the way Dick Warlock plays him. Nick Castle is great too. Nick Castle's a little more shadowy and mysterious, which I prefer. But in this one, he's a little more out in the open. You see him a little more. He's less mysterious, but he's just really, really sick in this movie, and I love that. Donald Pleasance returns as Dr. Loomis. He's great once again. Jamie Lee Curtis, of course, returns as Laurie. She doesn't have as much to do this time around. Her role is a little shortened. So yeah, she doesn't have much to do other than run away and scream because she's been wounded. She's in the hospital and she's all drugged up, so it makes sense. I love the ominous hospital setting. It's so dark and dimly lit in that hospital. It's so secluded and isolated. It's a great atmosphere for a horror movie. Very creepy, and the climax, the ending is awesome. Yeah, I'm kind of more of the less is more kind of guy. This one's kind of more style over substance. It's more gory. It's more action packed. Than the first movie. And he even has a couple explosions. So yeah, less is definitely more in this case. So the original is far better, but I love this sequel. I think it's a perfect follow-up. Yeah, I just love it. It's great. All right, before we get to the number 1 choice, let's go through a few honorable mentions real quick. Phantasm 2, Psycho 2, Psycho 2, Aliens. I would have included this on my list, but I don't really consider this a horror movie. It's kind of more sci-fi action. It's definitely horror as well, and it's great. I feel like the first movie was definitely more of a horror movie, where this one kind of went for more an action style. I'm talking about James Cameron, one of my favorite directors, and I absolutely love it. But yeah, maybe it counts as a horror movie. I mean, it definitely does, but it's not as horror-oriented as some of these other films. But I love it. It probably should have been in my top 10, but oh well, it probably would have been number 11. At least. We also got Damien, Omen 2. I love this movie. The character Damien had a more prominent role in this one than he did in the first one. The first movie was centered around the character, but the character himself actually has lines and dialogue and actually has things to do. I like that he was a character, and he was kind of sympathetic too. You kind of felt bad for him. You kind of rooted for him and against him at the same time, so that was interesting. Devil's Rejects. Yeah, I thought this was a great sequel. Definitely. I'm looking forward to seeing 3 from Hell, which would be the 3rd film in that series. And of course, my number one favorite horror sequel, of course, has got to be Ghoulies Go to College. Just kidding. No. Of course, you guys know me. You know my favorite sequel, of course, is Evil Dead 2. Was there any doubt? But yeah, I've talked about this movie ad nauseum. So let's just go ahead and leave it at Evil Dead 2 is my number one. I fucking love it. It's awesome. Bruce Campbell's the man. Ash Williams is the best horror protagonist, period. And this movie kills it. It's perfect. I absolutely love it. Evil Dead 2. My favorite. Hi guys, I'm Hellhound. Thank you for watching my Midnight Spook Show here on the Horror Metal channel. Feel free to make your own video or leave your list in the comments below. I think some other fellow horror hangouts YouTubers were making videos like this. I know they're doing remake videos, but I think they might have done sequels as well. So check those out as well. You know. Alright guys, I'm Hellhound. Later.